This week's Parsha is Parshat Vayikra, and in it we read of the offerings and sacrifices that were brought by the children of Israel, initially to the Mishkan and then thereafter those that would be brought to the temple. And it's not always difficult to find something amongst those offerings of day-to-day relevance, given that, sadly, we no longer have the temple. But two phrases stick out. The first one, Kol she'or v'kol dvash lo taktiru, and the second, Al kol korbancha tarkiv melach. That amongst the sacrifices you should not bring any involving honey, and with the rest of the sacrifices, for every single other one, you should actually bring salt. So it's a little bit strange that you would not be permitted to bring honey when we are, after all, in the land of milk and honey. Eretz chalav udavash. Why would honey not be acceptable and salt, yes, be acceptable and be required? And one of the explanations for that is given by the famous 19th century Rabbi the Netziv. And he said it's actually an example of the division of life between sweet and salty flavors. Sweet flavors and sweetness is something from which we get enjoyment, attraction, can also be a degree of temptation. But something that is salty is more challenging, more demanding, and it's harder to achieve. So that what he's trying to say is that we're often given a choice in life between the easy and the tough. And with experience comes the knowledge that actually the tougher experiences, those salty and grittier experiences, where we manage to overcome them, there is a greater satisfaction and significance in those activities than in those that are sweet and attractive and are nicer to do. I'm standing today outside Beit Aronson, the famous headquarters of the Nili organization that spied for the British during the First World War. And a good example is Sarah Aronson, who, even though she came to Egypt several times in the course of her work and was told actually to stay in Egypt at some stage by her brother, not to come back to what was then Palestine, decided to come back and continue her work. She could have stayed in Egypt, a successful operator for the British, and would have been well looked after, but she chose the harder option. She chose the option to come back and show her dedication to the country and what she believed would lead to the beginning, and did eventually, obviously, the creation of the State of Israel in due course, by throwing out the Turks at that particular stage. She could have had the easy option, but she chose that tougher, grittier option, which sadly led to her tragic torture and subsequent suicide to get out of being further imprisoned. And that dedication, that willingness to sometimes go that saltier, tougher route in life, can ultimately require a great sacrifice, a personal sacrifice. But the significance and the impact that can have can far outweigh sometimes choosing the sweeter and softer option. Shabbat Shalom.